Good morning, Rob.
Good morning, Paul.
How are you?
Yes, I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. I kind of lost track of which day it is. I don't think it matters so much anymore, is it?
It's quite hard keeping track of when the weekend is.
Yeah,
Everything merges into one.
yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for joining me today. For those that don't know who you are and what you do, if you'd like to introduce yourself and your business, that would be great.
Okay, so I'm Rob Perks and I'm CEO at Inspire. We are an organisation that supports businesses. So we are part government funded and part funded by the businesses that belong to our group. We support businesses of all kinds, all sizes. Normal times, we're helping them to grow and to scale up their businesses and do better. At the moment, we're very focused on helping them through this current COVID-19 crisis, and ensuring as many as possible come out strong at the end of it.
Yeah, okay, yeah. And so how have you found that then with yourself in terms of adjusting to home working, and also your clients, how they sort of fared through it? What's the sort of general feeling?
Yeah, so like many people, our team are all home working at the moment and using technology. I think one of the things that we're all finding is we've got to get to grips with aspects of technology that we haven't had to over recent times, and making sure we can make it all work. We're all grappling in our sort of area with our geographical area with broadband, which is not always brilliant. So there's some of those sort of technical issues to contend with. But otherwise, I think lots and lots of people have adjusted. We've adjusted now, and we've pretty much moved everything we do online now. So instead of going to see people face to face, we're meeting them like this on video. Our workshops that we normally have on various different topics, which are normally physical ones in workspaces, are now like this online. And we're even getting networking groups together to meet and discuss experiences and so forth online as well. So that's us. And I think our businesses we found fall into three groups really. So some businesses are extremely busy at the minute. If you're in food manufacture, food distribution, or you're supplying the NHS with products or anything like that, those businesses are extremely busy at the moment. Other businesses are pretty unaffected actually and are carrying on fairly much as normal. And then the third group are the ones that have been impacted either very severely or to some extent. And they're the ones predominantly that've got to rethink what they're doing and think about what they're going to do in the future differently in order to adapt to the changed world that we're seeing emerge.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, it's been interesting to see how it's, something's come in that's affected everybody, but at different sort of levels. And you mentioned the business support that you offer. So what kind of sectors, or what sort of areas of business support is it? Sort of finance, and then things on from that, marketing.
Yeah, so we always start with what we just term as business strategy. So every business needs a strategy of where they're going with their business over the next few years. What destination are you trying to get to? And once you decided, then how are you going to get there? So for every business, they'll have different challenges. Having mapped out, perhaps they want to double in size over the next 5 years, for example, they'll have different challenges. So some people might be very financially literate. On top of all the financial issues, not a problem at all. Others, finance may be a real concern for them. Some may have to raise investment, others not so much because they've already got money in the business. Some people, marketing is a huge challenge. They don't know anything about it and don't know how to do it. For others, they're on top of that. So what we try to do is to plug the gap. So we work out with the business what are the areas that they're very comfortable with and they can take forward very happily themselves, and which are the areas where they really need some expertise to actually help them move it forward. And we don't pretend to know everything about everything. So we work with about 100 different partners that are experts in all kinds of things, from tax to marketing to IT, and can bring in the right expert for the right situation to help them get over that hump and make sure their plan gets delivered, really.
Brilliant. So you've got all avenues covered for business support. So I could have done with that when I started the business. A lot of those things you mentioned sort of learned along the way, and it's great to have that support for people. So is it a mixture of startups and, like you mentioned, maybe businesses that are looking to grow? Is there sort of a certain pull to one area, or a mixture of different stages of a business?
It's a pretty fair mixture. We don't work with very early stage startups much. That's not really what we're setting out to do. So these are mostly businesses that have been established perhaps for a year or two at the lower end, and others that could have been running for 30 or 40 years or more. So it does just vary according to, but we usually work with a business that's trying to do something different, as opposed to ones that are just ticking along with what they're doing already and quite happy. So either a business that wants to grow, or a business that wants to change, or a business that, at the moment, that needs to change, because the environment we're in is forcing change on lots of people that might not otherwise have wanted to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Having something like this come along has made you have to think, and it can be quite overwhelming, can't it? So having someone like you and your team to sit down and discuss something is really important. And if you are at that kind of bottom of the S curve of the next stage in your business, or like something, say, just comes out of the blue, it's having somebody that's an expert, that you're not on your own, and somebody can clearly think way around the challenges they're at the moment. So you must be very busy then with particularly how that's impacting businesses, and what sort of tips and advice, or how are you finding the general feel of businesses that you could maybe help out with how they're feeling right now?
Yeah, well, the first few weeks, obviously, the biggest thing was getting connected up to all the government help. So people were not sure how to access the furlough scheme, what they could and couldn't do. We're finding trouble getting the loans from the banks. So we were helping with all those sorts of immediate things that were necessary just to stabilize the business so that you weren't going down the pan, really. But I think the main advice now is we're working with businesses on what we're calling the low touch economy. So I think we are emerging gradually from lockdown over the next few weeks and months, and the things that will endure, I think, are, for a long time, we're going to be in an environment where we're maintaining social distancing, whether that's in the workplace or with customers and things like that. So we're looking at those sorts of things. We're looking at hygiene aspects. I think there's a heightened awareness around hygiene issues for many people. So all those sorts of things you've got to build into your business plan now. So if you're a business that relies on lots of human contact, you've really got to redesign your entire process. Otherwise, you'll find yourself with very tiny levels of business because people just won't be comfortable. So a good example, the little retail shop on the high street where normally people are packed in tightly. That's just not going to be a thing that's possible, I don't think, for several years to come at least, until vaccines and things like that are around. So thinking about how you might perhaps develop an online platform to sell your product that way, because customers may be much happier buying your product that way. One example, but I think there's a whole variety of ways businesses have got to be aware of this sort of concern people will have around close contact. And also about thinking about, is your product or service expendable? So for example, do people have to have your product, or is it something just nice to have? Because as we see probably the economy getting more difficult, people coming out of work and redundancies rising and so on, people's discretionary income is going to drop. So if your product is something that's just a nice to have, you're probably going to have a tougher time than if your product is something that is essential. So thinking about, can you evolve your business so that you're more in tune with what you really need at this point in time?
No. Yeah.
Excuse me.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because say having those luxuries are those things that you pull back on, like you say, and have things that are useful or necessary are the things that people are going to focus on most. And I think speaking to lots of business owners I have, we are becoming more tech savvy. Some of us may be kicking and screaming a little bit to learning new things, including video for some people, which is very uncomfortable, but being much more open, honest and helpful with each other. And learning new skills has been important. I think, like you say, transferring to online and different business models that are coming out of this. So it's been quite an interesting time to see that evolve over the last 2 months, really.
Yes, and I think the local enterprise partnership, certainly in Somerset and Devon, is very, very focused on this, and we're just signing a contract with them to provide some free help to businesses on these exiting lockdown plans. Yeah. So I think the local enterprise partnership is really the government body locally, is really keen to help businesses do this and to evolve and to survive really, and become stronger in the future, rather than seeing lots and lots of business failures, which sadly we will start to see. So I think grasping that and not burying your head in the sand is absolutely critical. And people like us are here to just help guide you through that and give you some structure. It's hard. Some people started a business 30 years ago and it's been great and they've been ticking along very happily.
Yeah.
All of a sudden this has come along and the whole thing is now up in the air. So that's a tough place to be. But if you don't change, you'll probably not survive.
No, absolutely. I think some of those in hospitality, entertainment industry, kind of the hardest or the longest going to be impacted, I think. But I have seen sort of, I have seen like a cocktail bar, for instance, in Exeter, where they've transferred online with and having kits that can go out to people, or having if you're a local brewery, that you package up packs that people can enjoy, but also build your sort of brand equity in becoming. Because we're all in it together, people being much more upfront, and this is me and this is what I've gone through, is having people warm to you as a business owner, and feeling part of wanting to support you, really. I think that's been quite good for those sort of being really hard hit, that we will want to support them all.
Yeah, I think it's one of the things that's coming out of this, without being too philosophical, but I think more authenticity is coming out of this crisis, because people are often working from home, so the kids come in the room or the partner comes in with a cup of coffee, all that kind of stuff. And whereas in perhaps what we might think of as normal circumstances, people would see that as a bit unprofessional and not really kind of what you do. Now it's accepted. And so I think people are becoming more themselves than perhaps they used to. We're not all donning our suits and ties. And we have got one client who actually has got his team together on video and said he's very disappointed they're not all putting their ties on in the morning. And if they're going to be professional and do their Zoom calls professionally, they should all have their ties on. So that's very unusual. I think most people are accepting that, life's a bit different to that. And also social and work lives are integrating more because of being at home. So people might take an hour or two off to look after the children at lunchtime and that kind of thing, but work in the evening and all those things. So I think there's a real shift in social patterns as well as what's happening in the workplace, really.
Absolutely. I think, like I say, with the authenticity and the real, we're becoming more personable, more honest, and flexible, as you say, because as long as, and trust as well, there's that element of trust. If you can work from home and you get your job done and you're performing, then great. And if it makes you happier, if you're happier and you're able to say do the school run or go for a jog, walk the dog, etc., and I think there will be people that will see, well, why didn't we do this before? Our team are happier. Of course, we need to meet up and do all that, but I think having that flexibility has changed, and it makes me laugh. Your point about if I worked for the guy who said expects people to wear ties, I'd be that person that turned up the next day just wearing a tie and nothing else, just to make a point. But we laughed at the guy on the BBC whose children walked in, mid conversation.
That's right.
And we're all that guy now. I've had the cat walk in and things like that, and I say it has made it sort of humanise the whole thing and put us on a sort of level peg into that we're all human and we all have to similar lives, really, in lots of ways. So.
Yeah, and I think it's brought out, we've certainly seen the business world, it's brought out a new side to people. I think the offers of help where people have said, look, let me help you out. I can help you with that particular problem you've got. I won't charge you for it. I don't expect you paid for it. I'll just help you because we are all in this together and we all need to help each other where we can. So I think that side, we've seen a real increase in that kind of thing happening. Whereas perhaps, 2 or 3 months ago, people would have said, oh, I'm not doing that, they should pay me. Yeah. So I think that sort of altruism is coming out, which is no bad thing, really. I think it's happening on a social level as well, with people looking after their neighbours and that kind of thing, but also in a work context as well, which is, I think, it's good news.
No, and you raised some really good points there, that lots of people to say will agree with that and see that that's been a real positive change through all of this. It's been brilliant chatting to you today, and I will share links to your website and social channels and things so people can get in touch to find out more of what you do. I just got to now, Rob, on my question I ask everybody. So if you weren't in the sort of business support arena, if you wanted to do something else right now, what would you choose? Or what did you think you wanted to be when you were a young Rob at school?
Yeah, so the second of those first, I always wanted to be a farmer, would you believe?
Oh, okay.
So when I was a youngster at school, I used to work on a farm, and I always thought it'd be fantastic to be in the countryside and connecting with nature and all that kind of stuff. Loved it tremendously. And then I realised as I got a little bit older that there's no money in it unless you own a farm.
Yeah.
And as I couldn't buy a farm at that stage, I decided to do something entirely different and went into banking, would you believe? So there we are. That was always what I imagined. But I must say now, we live in a very rural area. I've got fields at the bottom of the garden that sheep in and things like that. And I still love being in the open spaces and in the countryside. I think that's still great. And I think over this spring, because A, we've been forced to take time out, and B, because of the fantastic weather we've had, just connecting with that whole, the nature and what's going on and watching spring evolve, which is one of the most interesting times of the year. It's been a really, really great thing to do, and something that mostly I've realised, you don't get time to do. You're too busy to notice. Yeah. It's sort of come full circle in a way.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I definitely concur with that. Lovely to chat to you today. Keep safe and well, and hope to catch up with you soon.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks, Tom.
Okay. Bye now. Bye.
Cheers. Thanks, Paul.